interesting about compound interest. It sneaks up on you. For the first 10 years, it's like nothing. The next 10 years comes out to $8.5 million. And then if you do the same, if you keep it at 40%, it comes out to like $240 million. Now think about what I just said there. Why are the Saudis, UAE, why is Oman, why are they into Bitcoin? Why are they starting to mine Bitcoin? We would become the world's Bitcoin superpower overnight. And my message to you is just think of it as a train. That train is getting ready to leave the station and you need a Bitcoin ticket. And if I had $800 billion, I guarantee you what I would do.
So today I'm joined with somebody who I actually regard as probably the most interesting man in Bitcoin. And before we got started today, we were talking about all of the near-death experiences George has had. And this has really got me thinking about the bigger picture and where Bitcoin fits into the bigger picture. Because right now, everybody's talking about Bitcoin, how it can help future generations, and how it could potentially even help you and your family retire in the future. And this is something that everybody wants to know and wants to talk about. So I think, George, the best place to start today's little rip is to maybe just talk about how you see Bitcoin in the bigger picture, and and all of the really, really interesting models and compound interest calculations that you've applied onto Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin is, I view Bitcoin as a once in a species event. I really do. I mean, I think it's the greatest monetary invention in the history of mankind. I can, I consider myself so lucky to actually be here and to watch this. I mean, I never thought that I'd get to see something like this. And this is going to transform our world. I mean, it's not going to stop. Bitcoin's not going to fail. It may be captured in some ways that we're not happy with, us Bitcoiners. It may not come out the way that we want it to, but Bitcoin's a beast. I mean, it's going to do what it does, and you're not going to stop it. Um, the thing is that obviously, if you look on your screen or if you know me, I'm an older Bitcoiner. I actually turned 70 here just recently. And but I'll tell you something, I can still kick ass and have a great time in life. And that's what you want to do. You want to be in a place where you can be my age like that and go out there and kick some ass and have a good time. And for anybody else out there that's young like yourself, I mean, look at you. You know what? You're going to have the greatest life. It's going to be incredible. I just can't even explain to you how good it's going to be. Those people that are holding Bitcoin right now, you've got a bright orange future in front of you, and all you have to do is hold on to the damn thing. And that's it. I mean, that's all it takes. And when you talk about compound interest, I've got a lot of crap thrown at me because of that discussion. But you know what? I don't give a shit anymore. I'm going to tell you something. Compound interest really is the eighth wonder of the world. And it's attributed to Einstein, but he didn't actually. I don't think he said that. If anybody out there, I made a challenge one time. If there's anybody out there that can find an actual, a quote attributed to Einstein regarding compound interest, you just DM me and I'll buy you a beer when next time I see you. But it is because, people don't understand. I mentioned the other day, if you can get a tenth of a Bitcoin right now, let's just say, I don't know what it is, but let's just say it's a $10,000 commitment that you get in there, and you let that thing compound and you pick your own damn number. Go out there and find a reverse Kager calculator, CAGR. Go out there, just Google that, and you only have three things to stick in there. Stick in the amount, 10,000, stick in the amount of years, and then whatever cumulative annual growth rate you think Bitcoin's going to have over the next uh, I don't know, 20 to 30 years. What's really interesting about compound interest is that it sneaks up on you. You really don't know what you have until as time progresses. For instance, take that, what I just said, and you put in a 40% cumulative annual growth rate on Bitcoin over the next 20 years. Guess what? For the first 10 years, it's like nothing. You look at it, you go, well, my 10 grand came out to like $300,000. And you're thinking, well, that's not very much. But let it go in there just a little bit longer, and it comes out, the next 10 years comes out to $8.5 million. And then for you young people out there that are never going to sell your Bitcoin, remember, you never sell your Bitcoin. For you, and I know this is going to sound crazy, and you're if you do the same, if you keep it at 40%, it comes out to like $240 million. Now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin's going to have a 40% CAGR for the next 30 years. It probably shouldn't. I mean, realistically, and I don't agree with Saylor's model that it's going to go down to 20% at like 17 years from now and just stay down there. I don't think that's correct. But I mean, that's his model. You put in whatever number you think is appropriate for that amount of time, and just realize that you're sitting you're sitting on the greatest store of wealth that you'll ever see for the rest of your life. And so if you're not bullish, I don't know, I don't know what you're on, but it's I'm definitely bullish.
You and me both, my friend. I just don't think people have run the numbers. Like, I typically agree. The Sailor's model is, I think it's very conservative, even on the bearish side of things. Because if you look at Bitcoin's CAGR over its first 15, 16 years, it's over 100%. A lot of people will say, oh, you can't use the first 3 to 4 years of Bitcoin between 2009 and 2013 because it was so young and so volatile. But even if you strip out those first 3 to 4 years when Bitcoin saw a lot of returns, Bitcoin's CAGR is still sitting around 100% a year. So I think the numbers you're throwing around, 40%, more than reasonable.
Well, the thing is that none of us know the future here, and we should make sure that people understand something. I mean, I don't have any background in finance, and I really, I will tell you something. This particular year, I'm definitely not as confident as I used to be in trying to predict where Bitcoin is going to go. I think we're in uncharted territory right now. We're like where no man has gone before, to quote an old TV series. But the thing is that I, I just know it's such a positive outcome. I mean, it's headed our way. It's just going to be just an incredible time as this goes forward. The things that have happened over the last 12 months, I never thought I'd live to see. And what's coming right now, over the last month, yesterday, I don't know if you watch the digital asset groups or if you follow that, but it was pretty amazing to see some of the speakers. You know, I saw the president address that for the very first time. A president addressed a conference like that from the office, and he's sitting at his desk. And I got a clip of it on X that's interesting to watch. But the thing that was so cool about it was at one point, I can't believe that this happened. This is the sitting president of the United States of America. He said that we are going to become the undisputed Bitcoin superpower. Now, think about what I just said there. The undisputed Bitcoin superpower. And there are still people, the thing is that you and I, we're talking to each other. We know a lot about Bitcoin. We're Bitcoin nuts, but the rest of the world, they have no clue. And I'm sure that when some people are seeing the president speak there, they're going, what is he talking about? But I know what he's talking about. And I think that going forward in the future here, we're just going to see more and more along this line. I also don't know if you happen to notice, but the Sheikh Nahyan from UAE was there. His first, I think it's Tanoon. He's the brother of the UAE president, and he himself has a pretty significant role in their digital assets. He was talking to David Sachs on a side meeting there, and there's a picture of them sitting there together. Now, can you imagine? What do you think that they're sitting there for? What do you think they're talking about? I mean, why would the UAE be over here discussing something with David Sachs, our cryptos are? I mean, people need to start putting some of this together and realize that we are headed for some major news announcements going forward, and I don't think people are bullish enough. It's late enough in the afternoon. I decided to pour myself a shot of whiskey here. It's a good whiskey. Well, I really like it. It's Big Nose Kate, and I don't know if you're probably not familiar with our Western history, but Doc Holliday, that was his girlfriend. And in fact, if you've ever seen a movie, it's called Tombstone. She's in that movie, featured in there, and she was kind of a badass. I mean, in the sense that she's the kind of a girl. I mean, you'd go out with her, and probably one night with her would change the rest of your life. You might never be the same. And in the movie, she's portrayed as someone that Doc Holliday didn't really know if she was trying to kill him or save him. And, she actually helped break him out of jail one time with a gun. I mean, she was a very different kind of a character. But anyway, I'm going to have a toast because, again, people aren't bullish enough, but I am.
Let's have a toast. Let's have a toast to those who are simply not bullish enough, George. I love it. I think
They need help.
they do need help. They do need help. I do. I just don't think they're piecing together the dots. So I think, like you said earlier, a lot of people will hear you throw out the numbers regarding a 40% compound annual growth rate and projecting where zero point 0.1 Bitcoin could be worth. Again, 10% of a Bitcoin today. I also tend to agree with you. I think that will be worth tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, much quicker than most people think. And it's because of the change, I think, we've seen in adoption. Like, if you had have asked me or told me 2 to 3 years ago that the largest nation state in the world would have a strategic Bitcoin reserve, I would have laughed you out of the room and told you were crazy. And if you had to convince me it was happening and asked me where the price of Bitcoin would be, I would say it would have to be in the millions of coins, the millions of dollars per coin. And we're still here at 85,000.
Yeah, I think that is what's really giving people problems right now. It's like my Twitter, my X feed is kind of all these people going, why is Bitcoin here? What's happened? Right now, most of all the short-term holders are underwater at price point. We're in the 80s. I don't know where, somewhere in the 80s. I think their average cost is around 92K. So they're underwater and they're pressured, and there's a lot of angst. Every time we go through these cycles, you get short-term holders. Very seldom, I don't think many of them make it all the way through to become a long-term holder, at least if they're trading, but it's to your advantage. I mean, it's this is an asset you want to hold forever. And if you're not trading in and out of it, and you're just trying to get as much Bitcoin as you can, which you should be. I mean, you should be, and let's just say that you're one of the fortunate people and you've got a tenth of a Bitcoin, or let's say you've got half a Bitcoin. Well, if you're young, again, what are you going to do? You're not going to sit on your ass for the next 20 or 30 years. You're going to work. And you got to work in life. And so, you should be out there stacking sats continuously, DCA into it. You know, I don't buy Bitcoin anymore. I mean, I've got enough Bitcoin. I don't need any more Bitcoin. And not only that, I don't have any money. I mean, I'm broke now. All my money is in Bitcoin. So I've got a lot of Bitcoin. I don't have any fiat money. And so you just got to keep stacking and view it in the right context there. And like I said, you can use even a very low CAGR. Use 30%, the amount of money that you'll end up with at the end of your lifetime, or at the time when you're ready to do other things. Because what is Bitcoin? For me, Bitcoin's freedom. I mean, Bitcoin is freedom to do what I want. I'm in a place now where I've got my Bitcoin, and every single year I get wealthier and wealthier. And I'm not sitting on my ass just eating donuts or something, but nonetheless, my you know my wealth is going up, and it goes up every year, and I don't have to do anything. Everybody else out there is on a hamster wheel running around like a nut. And you can't get in front of these people that have the printing press. I mean, they'll just print you to death. There is no, we talk about dollars. Like I put out a dollar amount there, but you know what? I don't know what that dollar is going to buy in 20 or 30 years. I don't even know, $100 million might be a house for all I know. All I'm saying is the purchasing power. That's it. The purchasing power of Bitcoin. When I say wealth, I'm able to do more things every year if I just sit on it. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do all the machinations I used to do, going around reading 10Ks and all that other crap, and watching the Fed and the FOMC, and wondering what those members are going to say, or Powell's going to come out and do next week. You know what? I don't give a shit about those people anymore.
It's a beautiful power to have, having the ability to just ignore all of the noise. Now, I do want to come back to talking a lot more about Bitcoin, but I want to learn more about you, George. You said you don't sit around all day eating donuts. You look like you're in absolutely incredible shape at 70, if I do say so myself. So, what does a George Bodine diet look like? I'm interested. What do you normally eat on a typical day?
Well, it includes whiskey. I actually, I actually was going to have a beer here, but I don't know. I popped the top off that beer, and the top broke, and so I thought, well, I'll just have a glass of whiskey or a shot of whiskey. But uh, diet-wise, I eat a lot of protein, so that probably doesn't surprise Bitcoiners. I like protein, but we're meant to eat protein. Okay, that's why you got these. And I have a gold tooth here, and that eye tooth is gold. It's really hard to knock out an eye tooth, if you're at your dentist next time, you ask him, you say, "Hey, is it hard to knock that tooth out?" He'll tell you it's about impossible. Uh, and so, we're meant to eat meat. I eat a lot of meat, but then again, I have a balanced diet. I'm not like some of the new, diets involving. I'm not afraid to eat vegetables, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't think they're going to come out and bite me or something like that. And just, balance and everything in moderation. I work out every day. I really think that you need to lift weights, if not just men, women too. I mean, everybody needs to be lifting weights, some kind of weight bearing exercise that you're doing every day. I work out. And then, cardio and stretching, all that stuff, core work. And, the other thing is you got to keep, uh, you got to be mentally ready to go in life. And the best way for that to do that is to be someone like yourself, just interested in learning new things with an open mind, listening to people. I do a lot of listening. I know I'm talking, now, but in real life, I mean, I always say, God gave me two ears, but just one mouth, but two ears. So I listen. I try to listen twice as much as I talk, and I listen to people even if I don't agree with them. I like to listen to hear what they say, and I give them the courtesy of really trying to listen to them. So, got to stay sharp mentally and plugged in and having a good time. That's all.
Some valuable lessons there. Protein is the base of your diet. I love protein as well. I ate 3 steaks today, and I couldn't see it any other way. And then that's really I like that little analogy. Not an analogy, but that little tidbit you gave us. God gave us 2 ears and one mouth. Sometimes you need to be doing more listening and talking. I love that. Now, in the beginning of our interview, I kind of teased the fact that I do think you're one of the most interesting people in Bitcoin, and I truly do believe that. So I want to learn a little bit more about your backstory and what you were doing before Bitcoin.
Well, I don't want to bore people because if anybody's been following me, but I'll just do just a quick recap. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I have a very unusual background, and that's great that you brought that up because this is the perfect time for me to say the standard disclaimer, which is, you know what? I don't have any background in finance. There are so many smart people out there that know what they're doing, and I'm not one of them. I've made a lot of mistakes. Sometimes I make the same mistake with no learning behavior. So you got to take what I say with a grain of salt. The good news is that I'm here. I mean, I've had a really not rough life, but just I used to. I was an ex-cop. I'm an ex-miner, underground miner, a real miner, and ex-cab driver late at night in Denver and Five Points area, and I went through the Navy. I went through Top Gun training and became an instructor, and then flew for Delta. And I was on a motorcycle pretty much all my life, riding motorcycles. I stopped recently, not long ago. I got a really cool muscle car that's a convertible, and now I make that go really fast, and so I'm enjoying it. But I'm just really fortunate to be here. I'm so glad I'm here. And, you know, if you are kind of curious why I'm even talking right now, if you're watching this or listening, I just, I've had a couple of people reach out to me and encourage me that I should start talking to people instead of being so reclusive and that I could maybe help somebody. And I hope I can, especially if you're a Bitcoiner right now and you're struggling with say this chopping around that we're doing, James Checkmatey on X calls it chop solidation. Great respect for him, by the way. If you're struggling right now, you just need to understand what you own. Just do a little bit more research and a deeper dive into what you have and realize that in my mind right now, anything in where we are, I think we're in the 80s. I said this is for me, this is an entry point. This is a buying area. In the 70s, absolutely. I mean, without any doubt. And I don't know the future if it's going to, have another severe drop down in the next cycle. I don't even know if we're doing cycles anymore. Do you? Do you have any idea if we're in a 4-year cycle or not?
Yeah, I have controversial opinions surrounding cycles. I personally think that the whole idea of diminishing returns and this power law model that can supposedly predict Bitcoin's going to top at 200K this cycle. I think all of those things are really going to set a lot of people up to lose a lot of money. I think a lot of people are going to sell Bitcoin far too early. And I personally think a lot of these models are going to break. Maybe we do see some sort of a 4 year walk higher if Bitcoin does continue to kind of correlate with this 4 year a global liquidity cycle that we do see, where liquidity kind of rises for 3 years and it drops for one. But I personally think people put too much faith in these models. How about you?
You know, I maybe I'm starting to evolve in your camp there because I'd have to say I've really followed the cycles pretty hard, and I follow a lot of different models, including the power law model. And I I've definitely am not as I'm not sure anymore. I think I'm kind of like you. I'm evolving maybe into seeing this as a cycle that not a cycle, just seeing this as a new kind of where we're going in the future, which will be choppy, but always in my mind, don't forget, I'm like a Bitcoin permabull. I'm cast in iron with gonads the size of church bells. I am a permabull for Bitcoin. So I look out at the future and I see, hey, guess what? I think this is going to go up and to the right forever. So where it's going to go in the next year, 2 years, do we even have 4 year cycles anymore? I can't answer that. And I feel like I'm in uncharted territory, you know? It's like I'm not confident predicting prices as much as I was. You know, at one time I had a base case for around 225 at minimum on this next cycle. I don't really know anymore. I don't know what the hell's going to happen. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, look at the things that have happened. Look at the SBR. You know, that executive order was incredible. And that's another thing. People, I don't understand what in the hell people are doing, not jumping around, dancing in the aisles. You know, that executive order did just what we wanted. It established a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And now we have seen Scott Bessent, we have seen Howard Lutnick, we have seen Bo Hines, the executive director for that digital assets advisors. We've seen David Sachs, if I didn't mention him, they're all behind this, and they're talking about we're going to acquire. Bo Hines just said we're going to get as much Bitcoin as we can, and they're committed to it. David Sachs said on the White House lawn, he said we have been directed by the president to go forward with this, and we're going to as quickly as we can. So, what did that SBR establish? First off, it separated Bitcoin from all those shit coins out there. You know, that digital asset stockpile composed of, I think it's got Sol, ETH, and some other crap, maybe Bitcoin Cash in there. You know, that's not even something they have to keep. They could sell all those shit coins and buy Bitcoin with it. I mean, wouldn't that be incredible? You know, XRP, I'm sure Garlinghouse, CEO of XRP, was at that original conference when President Trump sat down in the middle. Michael Saylor was on one side. They had Garlinghouse off over in their corner and stuff. I bet he was just wondering himself, what am I doing here? But that was typical Trump, you know, to drag somebody out, make him come all the way to Washington, basically, so he could just, I won't say humiliate him, but he definitely kind of shoved him the shaft, so to speak. So, you know, they called it digital gold. I thought that was really cool. They said it's Bitcoin only, so they separated it from the altcoins. I think in there they said Bitcoin Fort Knox, as I remember, the idea that they're going to establish, you know, this as a treasury asset. They acknowledge the fact that Bitcoin really does only have 21 million coins. So when your crazy jackass uncle sits up at Thanksgiving dinner and starts talking about how they're going to make more Bitcoin, you can say, hey, look, you know what? That's not true. And I can tell you the president of the United States has actually told the entire nation and all the world that there's only 21 million Bitcoin. That's pretty cool. And then they said it had never been hacked. You know, the budget neutral thing, that's a big deal. People should have been jumping up and down and said, hey, you know what? That's really smart. Why? Because for one thing, you know, you and I, we're sitting here, we're talking to each other in a little circle. We all love Bitcoin. We're talking about Bitcoin. We know all kinds of stuff about Bitcoin. But if you go out there on the street, the normie, He's not going to know about Bitcoin. And if you tell him that you're going to use the US budget and his tax dollars to buy Bitcoin, he's probably going to be pissy. So basically, the president and everybody else can say, no, we are not using taxpayer dollars. It is a budget neutral purchase. I mean, that's incredible. And the other thing is it kneecaps the Democrats. I mean, it basically says, you know what, you don't have the argument that you would have had if we were not doing this in a budget neutral manner. So, oh, and the other thing is, remember, it's an audit. They're going to audit. We don't even know how many Bitcoin we really have. I think it's about 187,000, but nobody knows. So they're going to audit the Bitcoin. And then what are they going to do? They have to start sending it, I think, within 30 days too. So what a positive, I mean, what a positive thing in every way. And there are still people that are negative about the whole SBR, and there are people that are just not they're just not following this correctly. There are people that are going to be so shocked at where this goes over the next year. I mean, they're just going to be shocked.
I tend to agree, George. I just don't think any of it's priced in. Like, if the largest nation state in the world is talking about accumulating a strategic Bitcoin reserve, the big question is, how much are they going to buy? Are they going to buy 500,000 coins, 1 million coins? I mean, there's just simply not enough Bitcoin to go around, which is what makes me so bullish. I mean, there's 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges today. And one man, Michael Saylor, he has nearly 500,000 coins himself. Do,
Exactly.
do we really
And
think that a nation state like America won't want to buy more coins than Michael Saylor?
exactly. I mean, exactly. And what I said, why is the UAE, why are the Saudis, UAE, why is Oman, why are they into Bitcoin? Why are they starting to mine Bitcoin? Why are they making a push to acquire Bitcoin? And I know in my mind, there's no doubt in my mind they're stacking. And, they're not stupid. And their oil revenues, they understand them very well. They understand what commodities are. They know what sovereign wealth funds are. I mean, because they use one. And yeah, it's people are really just they're just not thinking this through. Saylor Bernstein came out some time ago, the private wealth fund, and they said, they think he's going to get 1 million coins. And I believe it now. So I'm telling you right now, you can bookmark it. I think that Michael Saylor is going to attempt to get a million Bitcoin. He'll have 4% of the Bitcoin. And then he will be, now I've been saying this for a long time, but I've noticed, so I'm going to say that I was one of the early, I don't know, prescient persons to see that this is where he was going, which I've always said for some time now that he is going to become the world's largest Bitcoin bank. And I still believe it. And that's going to piss off some people too. But you're not going to stop it. You're not going to stop these banks that are coming. They're headed our way. They're on their way.
I agree. They're headed our way, and when they want to get here, and when they want to compete with Michael Saylor's 1 million Bitcoin stack, there's only 2.5 million Bitcoin on exchanges for them to buy.
I know. And now, the one thing I'll say about that is, yes, you're absolutely right. Let's just say he gets 1 million Bitcoin and then, there's 1 million Satoshis coins that are gone, hopefully forever. And, you're looking at the ETFs, they're still at 1 million coins or more. And if you look at the lost coins, somewhere between 2 to 4 million lost coins. There are 3 million coins that are held by corporations and governments right now. So, yes, there aren't a lot of Bitcoin left. And we've only got like 9 years until we're at the 99% mined point. And at that point there, we're basically capped. I mean, because you will lose as many Bitcoin as you mine for the next 100 years. And so, but I want to give caution here, or I want to say that if you think about the law of supply and demand, if you've studied it, you realize that for every buyer, there's a seller, and for every seller, there is a buyer. And when we start getting to supply constraints, that price point is going to be set on the margins, and it's going to be that margin buyer. But there always will be Bitcoin for sale. It's just the thing that people need to realize is that what's going to change are the prices. You're looking at $84,000 price, and that is not going to be the price in the future. That's not even close to my price. Even at my age, you know what? I hold my Bitcoin in a fucking fist. I mean, I don't let go of it. And I'll give people money. I mean, I I think I bought that miner and that painting back there. I'm mining Bitcoin right now while we're talking. That miner back there that's kind of glowing and stuff, that yeah, I paid Sats for that. And I just got something else too with Sats. I got a Satosphere, one of those revolving things. I don't have it in the studio right now. I'm getting it down here. But what I'm trying to say is I'll use Bitcoin in a circular economy and to help people out. I don't mind doing that. And I donate Sats. That's fine. But that Bitcoin that I scraped and struggled and went through sleepless nights to get, you know, I mean that was tough, and it means something to me. I'm not letting go of it. And these TradFi people, they're clueless. If they think they're going to pry any of this shit out of my hand, I maybe a million a coin, I might consider some of it, and you won't even have to. That's the other thing. You won't even have to. You'll be able to live off that Bitcoin. Those, when we talked about CAGR and compound growth, you'll get to a point where you'll have enough money that you'll just be able to take out a small loan, pay it off year by year as Bitcoin increases, and you'll never sell your Bitcoin. You'll just be able to live on it in perpetuity. So, what a great life that's going to be for you guys.
Please do not write down your Bitcoin 12 or 24 word private key or backup phrase on something as flimsy as this stuff we call money today. Paper. Don't do that. Write down your Bitcoin 12 or 24 word backup phrase onto something that's going to last. This is why I'm such a big fan of what Stampseed has made. They make these titanium plates for you to actually stamp your Bitcoin 12 or 24 word seed phrase into, so that if you do run into a hypothetical scenario in the future where you lose your hardware wallet, or God forbid, your house burns down, you actually have something that's going to survive the house fire or the flood or the hurricane. And that is the titanium plates that Stampseed makes for your precious Bitcoin wealth. Highly encourage you guys to check out what Stampseed is doing. And if you want to get your hands on some titanium plates, you can get a 15% discount off anything you want to buy from Stampseed with a promo code Luke15. Now, this is such a pivotal mistake most people are making. And again, all of these bullish assumptions are useless if you're not backing up your Bitcoin. I'm looking forward to it. The ability of borrowing against Bitcoin certainly does save us all of the hassles that we may or may not have with the tax man. So I'm really interested to see how that kind of discussion evolves around Bitcoin. And maybe that kind of is related to Michael Saylor creating this Bitcoin bank. Maybe we're going to see Bitcoin banks everywhere in the future that enable everyone to borrow against their Bitcoin.
Oh, he's already told us that's where he's going. He's been saying it now. I've been following him pretty closely and watching this subject, and he's already said it where he's going with it. He first really put it out there when he was talking to Safe in that interview, 4 years of Bitcoin. At 1 hour and 32 minutes in there, he talks about Bitcoin banks. He talks about yield from your Bitcoin, never having to sell your Bitcoin, banks too big to fail. And a lot of people, again, there are going to be maxis out there that just do not like this discussion at all. I'll just tell you right now, you're not going to stop it to begin with. And secondly, everybody's going to have to come to their own conclusion here. Bitcoin doesn't generate yield. I say that just about every podcast for a reason. Again, Bitcoin does not generate yield. So every one of these banks, every one of these products that's going to offer you yield, you better figure out where that yield's coming from, or it's from you. And if you're comfortable with their program, maybe it'll be an FDIC insured bank. You say, hey, I'll let you have a little bit of my Bitcoin, for a loan, knowing that you're covered with FDIC, or it could be something that's similar to Anchor Watch, something that's got an insurance product behind it too. I don't know where this is going, but I'm pretty certain that we are going to see a lot of banking products going forward now that SOB 121 is repealed. I mean, why wouldn't they? They want in this space.
Absolutely. Speaking about where we're going to go, do you have any thoughts on how long we might still be using fiat currencies around the world? Like, do you envision a world where we only use Bitcoin in the future, or do you think there will always be fiat rails to help us transact?
Oh boy. That's going to be a let me have another shot here.
You might need another shot to answer that one. That's a tough question.
Well, it's not that. It's just That's going to piss off some people too.
Let's do it.
I don't, well, I don't think the dollar's going anywhere, not for a long time. In fact, I can tell you right now that one of the reasons the administration's doing what they're doing is because they want that dollar to be strong. The president said himself, we want the dollar to be the reserve currency. He said that in the address that I was discussing earlier. We want the US dollar to be the reserve currency. So they're going to do everything they can to make that happen.
Mm.
And if you look at the history of reserve currencies, I'm telling you right now, they don't they don't die a quick death. It's like a fish flopping out there on the bank. I mean, they're there for a long time. Even after the country loses its superpower status, they're out there for a long time. So I don't see that as being. I think that the U.S. dollar is going to be around for a long time. Now, I know that the U.S. dollar's got some significant issues and problems, but I think one of the things they're thinking about is in the future, a world with maybe sticky inflation or inflation that's, as much as we can take. And if they can get wages up to match it and inflate away our debt and basically almost use yield control like a suppression or repression, it's called, to try and and keep the dollar as the world's reserve currency, I think it could work. And
Mm.
again, I don't know. I mean, I'm just guessing that I'm listening to what they're saying. And they're telling me right now that they're committed to keeping the dollar as the world's reserve currency. And, we could touch on stable coins because that's part of the plan. The biggest battle that's going to happen right now in the next 6 months in Washington is over stable coins. The Digital Asset Subcommittee in the Senate, for the very first time, headed up by Senator Lummis, is going to discuss. They have three priorities, and she already laid that out, and she said why. And people have been giving her a lot of crap, and I think they need to cut her a little slack because basically she's laid it out very clearly what the problem is with the Strategic Bitcoin Act, or the Bitcoin Act 6912. Or is it 4912? It doesn't matter. She's got sponsors now, by the way, and I do think that has a chance to pass. It's going to take time. But what she said is, their first priority is stablecoin legislation, the Genius Act. And I think that this battle between Circle and Tether is going to really heat up pretty soon. And I don't know how familiar you are with stablecoins, but I don't want to see Circle be the dominant stablecoin in the United States. I'm not saying Tether doesn't have issues or that I'm not concerned about Tether, but I sure as hell would rather see Tether in that position of dominance, which they are now. They are the dominant stablecoin. I want to see them stay there, and because they are more morally and ethically aligned with my position as a Bitcoiner than Circle is.
Mm.
And so this is going to be a big battle. And then she said the next thing we're going to do is we've got to come up with a digital asset framework, regulation. What is the security? What isn't? Who's going to be, is it the CFTC or the SEC that's going to be handling this particular issue? So that's their second thing. And then the third thing to get to is the Bitcoin Act. But the majority whip in the House just put out a shout out for the Bitcoin Act. He says he thinks we can get it passed. So again, people are just not being bullish enough and they're not paying attention to the news cycle. But before I finish, just getting back to the dollar, I want people to understand something. I don't like this fiat world that we live in. I mean, it just pisses me off. I hate the fact that people can't get in front of the money printing machine, and that unless you're close to the money printer, that you don't have the financial privilege and you're not able to, become a quintillionaire. So, I'm not a fan of this system. I just am realistically and thinking to myself that it's going to be a slow death over many years. And in a way, that could actually be good. I mean, just think about it for a minute. I mean, it could be good, Luke. I mean, you don't want the US dollar to collapse because, for one thing, the pain across the planet would be indescribable. And if it was a severe collapse, I mean, we'd be out there, I wouldn't be in the studio. I'd have my gun out, my ammo, my food, my water. I'd be in the basement, and I'd probably get a dog for company. And then when your neighbor came over and he wanted some food and asked you for some help, you'd have to decide if you're going to help him or shoot him. So I don't want to live in that world. That's dystopian. I want us to somehow have I want us to have an orderly, not disorderly, slow embrace of Bitcoin, if you will. That's it. That's a positive note. I want a slow embrace of Bitcoin, and I want it to take over, as base sound money. That's my goal.
I want the same. I certainly do want a slow and gradual transition. I knew that was a good idea to ask you that question. I think Michael Saylor has an interesting quote that I really like. He kind of says, like, over the next few decades, you're going to watch all the property collapse into Bitcoin. So all of the value stored in property. That's like the $300 trillion debt market, $300 trillion real estate market. But then he says you're going to see all of the fiat currencies collapse into the US dollar. So a lot of the value from those other currencies is going to collapse into the US dollar. And I think that's a really interesting framework that's kind of how I see the next 10, 20, 30 years unfolding. I agree with you, George. I don't think the dollar is going anywhere. And I actually think the dollar is going to help the United States potentially prolong their global reserve currency. I think stable coins are going to help the US dollar prolong its global reserve currency status for much longer than most people think. Because even right now, Tether's like the 12th or the 13th largest holder of US treasuries in the entire world. It's
Yeah.
massive.
Yeah, you're right. In fact, they've got more U.S. treasuries than Germany. The problem, though, of course, is that what are they buying? They're just buying on the short end of the curve.
Mm,
I don't think they go out past 3 months.
mm,
So that's the short end. And, our real issue for our nation, and when I talk, I know, I don't want to be just US centric, but the reason I talk about, our bond market is because it's going to affect a lot of other bond markets. And, if we can't figure a way out to get out on the longer end of the yield curve in our fixed income, our bonds, it's going to be a problem going forward. And, they've got to roll over like $7 trillion of bonds this year, and that's going to be really difficult for Scott Bessent and the Treasury to do. Uh, the funny thing is, though, and here's another really positive thing that people aren't really, I don't think they're getting or something, is that, if you look at if you take a look at, say, Luke Roman, if you follow Luke Roman, one of the things he said 4 months ago was he said, "Hey, this talk about tariffs is disconcerting because they can't do tariffs right now unless they can get the dollar down." And I would piggyback on that, and I'd say unless they can get the 10-year down, those tariffs are going to be very destructive. Well, guess what? They've got the Dixie down. And they've managed to get the 10-year down from 4.8. I think that was in January. Now it's down to 4.2. That's incredible. So, they must be understanding some of these deeper concerns that we have about debt and about the sustainability of the U.S. debt. And if the U.S. debt has a difficult problem in auctions with treasuries, the whole world is going to catch a cold. It's not going to be pretty for anybody. And the stronger the dollar is, the more pressure it puts on other countries, especially emerging countries that are, needing dollars. If you need dollars, you're going to be paying a significant price when that Dixie starts skyrocketing, and that's bad for everybody.
mm, yeah. When the Dixie skyrockets, it creates a little bit of a short squeeze on the world, so to say.
Yeah.
George, I want to know about that painting in the over your left hand shoulder. The not the one that's mining Bitcoin, actually the one with the big bull on it.
Ah, the bull. Now that bull was on our family farm out there. But I did do a really cool. I used him as the model, and when I was down in Bitcoin, Miami, this was a couple of years ago, I did a painting of that bull on site, and then I put arrows, the what would you call it? The green and red arrows, on the painting itself, and then they go off up to the top, in a bull run type of thing. So that was a really great painting. Somebody picked that up, somebody I know. I think it's down in El Salvador right now. They bought a place down there to move. I've been down to El Salvador. It's a pretty cool place.
When did you go?
I went, it's been 2 years, I think now. So I went to that, not Plan B, but the Adopting Bitcoin conference. It was really good. I had a great time. El Zante, I can't highly recommend enough El Zante. What a blast. And, they've got these great restaurants, pupusas and these great hotels to stay at with an infinity pool. And I had a great time. I could have stayed down there a lot longer.
Yeah, I love El Salvador. I think I've spent nearly a year in El Salvador collectively over the
Wow.
months. Yeah, I spent a long time there, and it is a blast. I love connecting with other Bitcoiners at conferences down there in El Salvador. If you are looking to buy more Bitcoin, I always encourage you guys to check out what the Bitcoin Well is doing, not just because they are the best place to buy Bitcoin, but because they help you avoid the pivotal mistakes that we're talking about in this video. They say, we will not hold your Bitcoin. You need to take self-custody of your Bitcoin. This is why I love the Bitcoin Well. Check them out at the link down below in the description. So again, I always encourage you guys, if you are looking for somewhere to buy your Bitcoin, I always encourage you guys to check out the Bitcoin Well. I think they're the best Bitcoin-only exchange in the space because they force you guys to self-custody and because they're about to give you some free Bitcoin. So if you do have a Lightning wallet on you guys right now, we're actually going to try to give you away some sats from the Bitcoin Wishing Well. Now, once you sign up with the Bitcoin Well using the link in the description down below and you start buying Bitcoin, you're going to get some of these things in the top right-hand corner of the screen that you can see. You can get some Bitcoin Wishing Well tokens. And when you play the Bitcoin Wishing Well, you actually get the chance of winning 0.01 of a Bitcoin. That's 1% of a Bitcoin. So we're about to play the Wishing Well live for you guys to give you guys a little bit of a look of what happens when you buy Bitcoin on the Bitcoin Well. So we're going to play the Wishing Well with 500 points. We're going to redeem these points. And again, this is a race. Whoever can scan this Lightning QR code the fastest is going to win. So how much money are we going to win from the Bitcoin Wishing Well today? In goes the token. What have we got? 210 Satoshis.
Yeah, I agree with you. In fact, I think they've got a really bright orange future too. I mean, let's face it, they're going to be they're going to be a powerhouse in Central and South America. Stand by, boy.
This is one of the beautiful things about Bitcoin. I think it can disproportionately help the smaller nations and the little guy as opposed to the bigger guy. Just because the smaller guy can be more nimble, and like the Kingdom of Bhutan, for example, they've sunk about half of their GDP into Bitcoin. They hold about $1 billion worth of Bitcoin. It's nearly impossible for America. It is impossible for America to sink or acquire a Bitcoin position that is half the size of their GDP. They've got a $30 trillion GDP. America can't buy $15 trillion of Bitcoin because it's only $2 trillion, the entire network. So I like that you
I
mentioned El
know.
Salvador.
I know. In fact, that's going to be. I don't know how far the U.S. wants to go. I mean, like I said, the words that they're using are they're very bullish. They want Bitcoin as much as we can get. Well, they can get a bunch. I mean, I'll tell you right now, if they revalue their gold certificates, right now they're at $42.22 a certificate. If they revalue them to the price of gold today, it's just over $3,000. They're going to have $800 billion to go play with. And if I had $800 billion, I guarantee you what I would do. And I mean, I would fill up the strategic Bitcoin reserve. We would have more Bitcoin than we knew what to do with. We would become the world's Bitcoin superpower overnight. And boy, if there's anybody out there that I have an ear to that could do that, I'm just telling you, in my mind, that's the way to go. First off, yeah, I don't want us to get rid of our gold. I mean, I don't want us to just dump all of our gold. I really think that gold has a position within our central reserve, as a strategic reserve asset. I do. I don't have anything against gold. I've held gold a lot. You can imagine, look at me and my age. I went through the 70s. I knew what it was like to see the 70s and inflation and all those jackasses and the things they did to our money supply. and saw gold and what happened to gold after it was, basically open for purchase for U.S. citizens. I mean, it skyrocketed, and for a reason. And so I don't have anything against gold bugs, or I just think gold bugs are they're just on their way to becoming Bitcoiners. It's taken them a while because most people my age, they don't get it. I mean, I don't have any friends that I can talk to about Bitcoin. None of them, unless they're, like through you or Bitcoin conferences. There's nobody in my circle that I can talk to.
Mm. That's normal as well. I still think we're so early. I'm sure you're going to orange pill lots of your family and friends over the coming years, though, George. I love just listening to you talk about Bitcoin. I really do mean that. Um,
Well, thanks.
I mean it. I mean it. I think you're playing a very important role in this transition, this hopefully gradual and peaceful transition that we're living through. George,
Yeah.
I want to hand the mic on over to you. And if there's a topic you think we haven't discussed today, or if you just think there's one thing that people really need to be paying attention to and focusing on over the next 12 or 24 months, the floor is all yours.
Well, the most important thing I think is to understand that you don't have much time left. I am convinced of that. I think of these as gifts that we've been given right now. This I would not have. Here's another reason. I'm wrong often. I was wrong here. If you would have asked me last year to go over the things that I just discussed with you, and to say, the president made this announcement. We have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We now have a new regulatory regime in with the SEC, all of these things that have been so positive. I would never have expected Bitcoin's price to stay in this ballpark. And I'll tell you the reason it is because, and this is just my opinion, is I believe that this particular period we're going through is very volatile and uncertain for the world, including TradFi. And you know that in times of stress, I'm sure you've seen this in markets before, Bitcoin has a tendency to correlate to other assets, even when it shouldn't. And I think that's happening now. I think Bitcoin is caught up into this narrative that, in my mind, is wrong. And what I mean by that is, if you look at what this particular administration is trying to do, and I'm not a Trump fan or anything. I don't give a shit about politicians. I can't stand them basically. But if you look at what they're doing and how they're being open about their goals, it makes sense that you're going to have some volatility and market suppression right now. I never thought in a million years that Scott Bessent would be given basically the green light to go and talk about how the stock market is not necessarily America's economy, because we've always thought that Trump was all about the stock market and numbers. And he himself has even pushed back against that narrative. It's as if they have a bigger picture, and that picture is to somehow get our economy back up on a right foot. So I think you have a limited time. And my message to you is just think of it as a train. That train is getting ready to leave the station, and you need a Bitcoin ticket. The one thing I can tell you is, if the wrong number is zero. If you're not exposed to Bitcoin right now, or you have people that are in your close circle, your family, the people you love, if they're not on zero, that's if they're on zero, that's the wrong number. You've got to somehow, yeah, well, I got to be careful here, because you know what? You said that about family, but I've mentioned this before. I just suck at orange pilling. I mean, I don't know what the problem is, or maybe it's my particular family, but I'm estranged now from basically one of my closest, relationships with a son of mine over Bitcoin. Not only does he not get it, but he thinks, Bitcoin is like, he just has very, very negative, and he wishes that I had never gotten involved in it. Now he won't, he won't regret that someday. But for right now, I have to be careful. Like at dinner meetings with my family and kids and stuff, I have to kind of muzzle myself. And so I don't want that to happen to you. I don't want those people that are out there listening to this to think that this gives them carte blanche to stand up at that Thanksgiving dinner again and become that uncle that everybody hates. So what I'm really saying is, for just you personally, that's it. You have a limited time left. So I know most people are probably already into Bitcoin, but I would encourage you to keep reading and studying what you hold. Try and get as much as you can. You know, I said a tenth of a Bitcoin. If you had a tenth of a Bitcoin right now, you should still be stacking. You should still be out there, using whatever fiat crap you can get, cuck bucks, and getting the Bitcoin that you can get for your future, because that is going to guarantee you that you'll live like me. You'll every single year, you'll just sit there and you'll go, you know what? My purchasing power, my wealth, not cuck bucks, not like I said earlier, whether it's 200 million or whatever crap from compound interest, not that. I mean the ability to buy stuff. That's going to go up every year. And this thing is not going to fail. It may not end up the way we want, but it won't fail. So that train's leaving. And you've got a limited amount of time to get on board and to get as much Bitcoin as you can. And then you just cannot lose the Bitcoin. You just got to learn how to hodl. Don't do anything stupid. Don't like this last cycle with all these, people that were trying to pick up pennies in front of a steamroller and get 2 to 3% yield off of FTX. I know somebody, I was listening to a story. The guy lost like, God, it must have been like 3 Bitcoin or something. And he went back twice to FTX to try and get yield. And the second time, it's gone. It's gone forever. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. FTX, it might actually end up he can get it back, but it'll be in cuck bucks. So all I'm saying is, just know what you hold, and this is a really important time. That sounded almost that sounded like a rant, kind of. I don't know what to say.
It was an
Yeah.
important rant. I think it was the perfect rant to end today's little discussion off on. You do not have enough time. George, I'd love for you to tell the listeners where they can find you online and let them know about what you're doing.
Well, if you just type my name in the internet, I'm usually the first thing that comes up. And if you're looking for me on X, I think sometimes that's on there too. But if not, you can find me. It's Jethro. That used to be my call sign in the Navy when I was flying around with my hair on fire. And it's capital JETHROE 111. And you'll find me there. And if you got any questions, you can always DM me or something. And uh, I just wish everybody the very best. And just realize that I think a lot of people are not reading this market right now.
Your Twitter will be linked down below. I tend to agree with you, George. And thank you so much for your time today. And thank you so much for what you're doing by just educating people about Bitcoin and bringing a different perspective to the space.
You're welcome, buddy, and I'm glad you had me on, Luke. And I again, I hope I'll see you soon.
The same feeling comes from me, buddy. I'd love to meet you in the flesh one day.
Yep.